Salute Discipuli. Today's lesson is chapter 39 in Wheelock's Latin, and this is where we are going to learn gerunds and gerundives. Okay, so let's get a couple of things in terms of sort of definitions down, okay? A gerundive is a verbal adjective. So this is one way for you guys to remember the difference between a gerundive and a gerund is that the gerundive is an adjective. And actually, we've already seen the gerundive in use because the gerundive is the future passive participle, right? It is the present stem. If you have a third IO, or fourth, you have to add an E or an IE or whatever. Plus ndus, nda, ndum, okay? And it can be just translated to be whatever. So for example, fawenda, here is this verbal adjective, this future passive participle describing nata, so a daughter to be cherished, okay? And we've also seen the gerundive used with the form of the verb to be to form the passive periphrastic. Okay, something must be done, right? Remember the name Amanda. Amanda means she who must be loved. Miranda, she who must be admired, okay? A gerund is a verbal noun. Now, actually, you know another verbal noun. You know the infinitive. Now, the gerund and the gerundive form the exact same way. It is the present stem for third, conjugation plus E, for third IO, fourth plus IE, then ndus, nda, ndum, okay? Now, the difference is that a gerund is a verbal noun, so it can be, say, the direct object of a sentence. It can be the indirect object of the sentence, and it's an action ending in ing. So, for example, I enjoy dancing, okay? So dancing has this verbal aspect to it, right? Because it has this action associated with it. But it is a noun in the sentence. In fact, it's functioning as the direct object, okay? Gerunds are only found in the neuter singular, and there is no nominative form for a gerund, okay? So gerunds can be possessive, they can be, or, genitive in general. They can be dative, they can be ablative, they can be accusative, whatever, okay? They just can't be nominative. And I'll show you on the next slide why not, as a matter of fact. There is one specialized use of the gerund, and that is when you have odd and an accusative gerund that expresses purpose. Okay, so one of the many ways actually that Latin can express purpose. They can use a purpose clause, or you can use odd plus the gerund. There's also a relative clause of purpose, and actually there's a lot of ways to express purpose in Latin. Oh, right, and the of course there's the accusative supine, which you learned in the last chapter. So many ways to show purpose in Latin. Okay, so I give you an example, excuse me, of different gerunds. Okay, so this is amo in its gerund form, so present stem plus ndus, nda, ndum, but of course actually just it's going to be plus ndi, ndo, ndum, umdo, right? So amandi, of loving, amando, to or for loving, amandum, loving in the accusative, amando, by loving. And then I give you a couple other examples, okay? Agendi, agendo, agendum, agendo. You can, of course, make a gerund out of deponent verbs. So loquendi, of speaking, loquendo, to or for speaking, loquendum, speaking, loquendo, so on and so forth. And same for exterior. Gerunds are never used as subjects and pretty much never used as direct objects either, because we use the infinitive, the other verbal noun that we know, to do those things. So think of one of the examples of an infinitive as a subject of a sentence. Errare est humanum. To err is human. It's also interesting to note that infinitives are also neuter verbal nouns. So there you go. Gerunds are neuter and are considered neuter singular, and so are infinitives when used as a verbal noun. So why, if a gerund is typically not a direct object, why do we have an accusative form? Well, again, for that odd plus accusative expressing purpose. I have some examples here of gerunds and gerundives. Ooh, hold on, getting ahead of myself. Aliquis optime aut docendo aut agendo discit. So, someone discit learns best out either by teaching or by doing. Okay, so these essentially being ablatives of means. Expressed by as verbal nouns, as gerunds. Okay, the highest sort of fulfillment, wawendi, of living. Um, we have this objective genitive here. Is to love and to be loved. Apparently, I recently watched Moulin Rouge and have this kind of sentiment on the mind. Okay. Um, ad addendum magum proficiscimor. So if you guys want to push pause for a second and try to figure this sentence out. Remember, odd plus the gerund is going to be purpose, okay? And then I tell you that a magus magi is a magician or perhaps a wizard. So proficismor, we're off ad addendum to see the magum, the wizard or the magician. And I can promise you I have not seen the Wizard of Oz in a long time, so that's just been living in there for a while. Okay, so the last thing I want you guys to think about and to learn about and to love about gerund and gerundive phrases. Gerunds are a verbal noun, which means that they can take predicates, okay? You can actually see this in the example, actually the last example that I had up here, addendum magum, to see the wizard, okay? This being the object of addendum. I'll also point out, again, this is purpose. We're off to see the purpose of seeing the wizard. Anyway. I have another example here, Magnum Amorum Legendi Libros Habeo. So I have a great love of reading books, okay? And books here being the object, the accusative direct object of legendi, this verbal noun. Now, there is an idiomatic use of the gerundive instead of the gerund in these kind of phrases, okay? When a gerund takes a direct object, that object is often attracted into the case of the gerund so that the gerund then becomes a gerundive that's modifying its own object. Okay, now I know that sounds very complicated, but actually it's pretty easy to recognize, okay? You will figure out what case this new gerundive phrase should be in based on what the case the gerund should be in, but the number is based on the number of the object. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by this. Magnum amorum legendi libros habeo. So same example from above, right? I have a great love of reading books. Now, if we look at the second example, the second sentence is also going to translate, I have a great love of reading books. Now, instead of using that verbal noun, that gerund, legendi, what has happened is that the libros, the object of legendi, has been attracted into the case of the gerund, which is genitive, right? So we now have a genitive ending on both the gerundive and the object of the gerundive. And we know that we should translate this reading books because we have a genitive plural ending on there. So we get the case of what the gerundive phrase is going to become from the case of the gerund, or what the gerund should be, but we get the number based on the number of the object, okay? So we know that we should translate this, I have a great love of reading books, okay? All right, take very good notes on this. Be sure that you are prepared to show me these notes in class tomorrow, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Walete.